Wonder boy. He's gonna be the best player in Europe in a couple of years. Trust me on that.
Europe?
In Europe.
Maybe in the NBA. Luka.
In NBA too. Born winner, so mark my words, he's gonna be one of the best in the whole world.
He's doing it at the second highest level of basketball in the world is unprecedented for European players.
Doncic, one-on-one with Dobric, step back, three-pointer for the game. You eat that! Oh my word!
It didn't matter if it was Antetokounmpo, Porzingis, or even Dirk Nowitzki. No team, no player has ever done what he's doing.
What makes Luka special?
His size.
It's gigantic.
I mean, he's gigantic. He's 6'8" point guard. He's 225 pounds. He has the ball on the string. And
Luka's the truth. Luka's the truth. Luka's the best, I'm going to say it on national television, Luka's the best white boy I've seen since Larry Bird. This brother is something special.
Down goes Johnson, oh no, they're shredding him.
Overrating Luka Doncic. He is not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination.
If he's not a superstar, there aren't any in the NBA.
Okay, well then there aren't any left.
Okay.
It's actually a triple threat of a liability because we start with his shooting. He is a sorry shooter, a poor shooter, certainly by superstar standards. Number two, he is a turnover machine. Luka Doncic, I'm going to repeat this twice so everybody lets it sink into their brain. He led the NBA this year in turnovers per game.
You can improve everything, or every time, every day you can improve, but especially my physical condition and my shot. I mean, I know there is pressure, but I think I show that when I go on the court, I don't have any pressure. I always say when I get on the court, I forget about everything, just play basketball.
It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
The story of Luka Doncic is well documented, a child prodigy who went professional at the age of 13. But there is way more to this story. In a country smaller than the state of New Jersey, an unknown land for most NBA fans, Slovenia is home to a little over a dozen NBA players, none greater than the 7-year-old kid who they call the Wonder Boy. Growing up in Slovenia, Luka Doncic was introduced to the game of basketball when he came out the womb. The son of Slovenian basketball star Sasa Doncic, baby Luka had a ball in his hands as early as 7 months old.
My dad played basketball, so he showed me the game. He told me, just work hard and have fun.
Že samo odločil, kaj povej.
Mi smo tekli na krožu.
Tako da res ne bom nič forsiral, da bi ga forsiral nekaj v košarki, kamorkoli bi.
By the age of 1, he could be seen walking and dribbling the ball around his house and shooting on his mini hoop.
Honestly, he was playing with basketball all of his life. Since he was 1 year old, when he started to walk, he was playing with the ball.
At the age of 2, Luka could be spotted at his dad's basketball games taking shots at the end of quarters or during timeouts. Growing up, he played all sorts of sports, but basketball was his one true love.
I was playing a lot of sports. I think they helped me a lot in basketball, but I was only good at basketball, so that's why I decided to play basketball.
Not only did Luka love basketball, well, he was obsessed with it.
I couldn't imagine life without basketball. A lot of times, I still wish I was a kid, you got no problems. Just go school, go play, that's it. But that was the dream, just play the NBA since I was really young. So every day is basketball.
Luka was a natural talent at a young age, and at the age of 7, Sasa would invite coach Luis Cisco from Union Olympia, a prominent Slovenian basketball academy, to meet young Luka. After some pushback because of Luka's age, Cisco, he would agree to meet young Luka. And after spending a couple hours with them, he would call his other coaches and demand that this kid tries out for the team. And during his tryouts, Luka would impress the other staff even quicker than he did Cisco. In only 16 short minutes, they would move young Luka up to play with the 10-year-old kids. And even at the 10-year-olds practice, the staff felt that Luka was just too good, and they would push him to go to the 14U team. Due to league rules, Luka was forced to play on the 12U team and was not allowed to play with the 14-year-old kids.
First practice, when he came to the older guys, to 3 years older guys, and he showed us some incredible moves in the start. So we very soon we knew that he will become a great player.
And coaches would describe Luka's game as something you just couldn't teach. As one coach would say, you can't learn this, what he's doing. No way you could teach some players or somehow give them this type of knowledge. The skinny 7-year-old kid handled the ball perfectly and had elite court vision for his age. Despite being miles ahead of his age group already, Luka still wanted to get better, often harassing his mom to take him to practice with the older age groups after his practice was over.
One practice a day, but he always wanted to practice more. So he said, "Mom, please call coaches if I can go to another practice with some other group." But even 2 practices a day, it was not enough for him.
He simply did not take days off. Luka wanted to play basketball every single day. Basketball was his distraction from the world. It didn't matter what else was going on in his life, he knew that he could count on basketball to be there for him. And with Union Olympia, well, Luka just got better with age, and every year he just took the next step. And at the age of 12, Luka would drop his first ever triple-double, putting up 54 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds in a championship game win. He took home the MVP award for the tournament alongside the championship trophy. And with his continuous work ethic and pure talent already, young Luka would gain attention from professional teams all across the world. And at the age of 13, Luka and Sasa decided that Real Madrid would be the perfect place for him. His father was fond of Real Madrid and how they were able to help former European players transition into the NBA, which ultimately was Luka's goal. So young Luka would pack his bags, move to Spanish without his parents, friends, or even the ability to speak Spanish.
I had to leave all my family, all my friends, the school I was there, everything, you know. So I wasn't gonna go. And then just one day I woke up and I say I want to go.
And before playing for Real Madrid, Luka would sign a 5-year deal that was set to end right when he turned 18.
In America, a good young basketball player goes to high school and then to college, and then they sign a professional contract after they get drafted. In Europe, they don't have high school basketball, so oftentimes a terrific young player, usually taller than most, maybe he's 13 or 14, but he's already 6'1", 6'2". A professional team in Europe signs him, like Luka Doncic, at 13, and he heads to a place like Madrid.
Despite Luka's talent, Real Madrid decided to put Luka on their under-14 club where he would flourish in day 1. In his first tournament with the squad, he helped them win a championship and took home MVP honors. Luka continued to impress, winning tournament after tournament and quickly becoming one of the most talented players in all of Europe for his age. Everyone that followed European basketball began to hear the tales of a skinny Slovenian boy absolutely tearing up European players called Wonder Boy. At the age of 16, Real Madrid would finally call Luka up to join the pro team, making him the youngest player ever to play for Real Madrid. And on April 30th, 2015, Luka would make his professional debut. In his first season with the club, Luka only played in 3 games and had very little impact on the season. It would not be until a game the following year where Luka Doncic's career would change forever.
Fritzen looking for somebody, gets it to Hines for a layup and a 7-point lead, the biggest of the game so far for CSKA Moscow.
Luka's Real Madrid team would find themselves down 37-30 in the second quarter. Madrid's head coach Loza would then call a timeout and would absolutely tear into his team, hoping to spark a fire. He would then direct his attention to a young Luka who has not played all game and was currently sitting on the bench. He would tell Luka, 1 play, 3, 1 play. Luka would nod, and as soon as he would check into the game, well, he drained a 3 right out of the timeout. And then after a miss from CSKA, Luka would grab the rebound, pass to his teammates, relocate, ask for the ball, and bang, another 3. After CSKA would fail to score again, Luka would have the ball in his hands once again. He would call for a screen, pull up, bang, his 3rd consecutive 3-pointer. At this point, the crowd erupted and CSKA was stunned that the 16-year-old Slovenian kid was absolutely killing them, forcing CSKA to call a timeout after his 3rd 3. In a matter of 5 minutes, Luka Doncic, the 16-year-old Slovenian kid, absolutely took over the game and gave his team the lead. The Wonder Boy had arrived in Europe. After that game, Luka became a regular in Real Madrid's lineup and would eventually crack the lineup during the season and play in 12 games in total. Now, not every game was like that, as he only averaged 3.5 points, 2.3 rebounds, and 2 assists that year. But Luka continued to improve on his game like he always did. In the next season, he found himself being a starter in the majority of the team's games, improving his numbers to 7 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists a game, a winning European Rising Star award. At this time, Luka was starting to get attention of not just Europe, but NBA scouts alike that this kid might be special. This would also be the season that he got his first taste of NBA basketball. Real Madrid would host the Oklahoma City Thunder for an exhibition game where Luka Doncic would have a chance to play up against MVP Russell Westbrook.
I was 16 years old playing against some of the best players in the world, Russell Westbrook, so I was, a little bit scared. He was just amazing to be on the court with that.
This taste of NBA talent would help Luka into his last season with Real Madrid, which was his breakout year. The 2017-2018 season could be argued to be Luka's best year of his entire career. Turning 18 and being eligible for the NBA draft, Luka Doncic put on an absolute show and raised his stock with every game. Luka led Madrid to the 2018 EuroLeague title, won the EuroLeague MVP as well as the Final Four MVP. He also was named the ACB League Most Valuable Player and won back-to-back EuroLeague Rising Star and ACB Best Young Player awards. He was also selected to the EuroLeague 2010-2020 All-Decade team despite only playing in 3 seasons.
This year I became European champion with Slovenia. I became European champions with Real Madrid. I was MVP of the season and MVP of the Final Four, so it's like a dream country.
Luka became the youngest European MVP of all time, and in just 3 years had accomplished everything a European player could have hoped for, and now had his sights set on the NBA draft.
And this has to be an overstatement, but a longtime NBA scout that I respect, I know knows his stuff, he said he's a cross between Larry Bird and Steve Nash. I said, if that's the case, then this dude's gonna light the league on fire. Tell me about Luka.
Okay, well, we tend to over-sensationalize European basketball. His feet is slower. His feet is slower than rush hour traffic. Okay, really slow feet.
Really,
he struggled with quick defenders. Okay, Luka should go to a good team. I don't believe he's a lottery pick.
Not a lottery pick?
No, I don't. Wow. I think he fall right outside the lottery. But
Although Luka Doncic dominated in the EuroLeague, there were many critics that did not believe his game could translate to the NBA. Many scouts worried about Luka's lack of athleticism and that it would hurt him on the defensive end. On top of that, many American scouts simply looked down on European players. It is well known that NBA scouts are more willing to take a risk on an American college prospect than an European prospect. Drafting a player like Greg Oden is less damaging to a GM or scout's reputation than drafting a European guy like Darko Milicic. Despite all of that, Luka was still the clear #1 pick for anyone that was not just trying to cover their own ass. Luka was the best prospect the NBA has seen in years. Numbers-wise, only LeBron James had better numbers as him as a draft prospect, and accomplishment-wise, well, only Kareem had more accolades. Simply put, Luka was the #1 pick hands down.
He's 6'8", 6'9". He can shoot the ball. He's a guy out of this entire draft that understands angles, and he's a guy also that can play the point guard position in a positionless basketball game and play on the ball, off the ball. You can put this guy anywhere on the floor. He's going to be successful.
But the NBA was not Europe. The way teams drafted in 2018 did not favor Luka Doncic. The 2018 NBA draft was loaded, headlined by DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic. Ayton was a do-it-all center out of the University of Arizona. Most mock drafts had Ayton as a unanimous #1 pick. After Ayton though, that's where things got interesting. Some mock drafts had Luka going #2 and others had Duke center Marvin Bagley. Bagley was a lefty center who had been highly scouted since she was in 8th grade and was supposed to be the perfect modern day big. But the class was loaded with more than just big men. It also had college's best scorer, Trae Young, who was getting comparisons to Stephen Curry. Michael Porter Jr., well, they called him the next Kevin Durant, a 6'10 sharpshooting forward. And last was Jaren Jackson Jr., an athletic stretch 4 out of Michigan State. This is one of the best NBA draft classes we had seen in the last 5 years, and Luka was going to have a hard time even being drafted as a top 3 with all this American talent. At this time, the NBA was shifting the way they drafted. No longer would they pick the best available player, they were now picking about who fits their team the most. And for Doncic, well, he was at a disadvantage. With the number 1 pick going to Phoenix, they already had a superstar guard in Devin Booker. Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver was a University of Arizona grad himself and was very fond of DeAndre Ayton and his game. But that offseason, the Suns had just hired a new head coach, the same coach that had just helped Luka Doncic win a Slovenian gold medal a few months before the draft. And by coaching Luka in Slovenia, he knew that Luka Doncic was clearly the best player in this draft, and pushed very hard for him to go number 1. But with the Suns already having Devin Booker on their roster, bringing in another guard was not ideal, and many worried how Luka could play next to another ball-dominant guard.
I don't give a damn about how this kid in Europe looks. I understand he's a 6'8" point guard. He's surreal. He'll probably be the number 2 overall pick. If it were anybody else, of course you take those things into consideration. But in Phoenix, DeAndre Ayton, there is nothing to think about. There is nothing to talk about. There is nothing to debate. There is absolutely nothing to consider. You have to take DeAndre Ayton with the number 1 overall pick because you are the Phoenix Suns.
And with the Suns already having Devin Booker on their roster, they will go with the hometown kid and draft DeAndre Ayton with the number 1 overall pick. Now it's time for the 2nd overall pick, which was the Sacramento Kings. The Kings, well, they have a long history of picking the wrong guy. They've taken players like Jimmer Fredette, Thomas Robinson, and Tyreke Evans when they could have got Klay Thompson, Damian Lillard, and Stephen Curry. But this time, it seemed simple. The Kings could not fuck this up. The obvious 2nd overall pick was Luka Doncic, especially since GM Vlade Divac had already had a relationship with Luka's father. But that relationship might also be the reason why this pick wasn't so easy. Tim McMahon would state, "My understanding is that Divac being so close to Luka and knowing his dad so well factored into the decision. Basically, he did not think a whole lot of Luka's dad and the whole father-like son." Divac would deny these claims and said that their draft decision was based on team needs. Much like the Suns, the Kings already had a star guard in De'Aaron Fox, who Divac absolutely loved. And with the same concerns the Suns have, the Kings were worried if Luka Doncic could play alongside another elite guard. So with the 2nd overall pick, the Sacramento Kings once again picked the wrong guy. They would draft Duke center Marvin Bagley III. Then things became interesting. The Atlanta Hawks were up next, and many expected them to draft Luka Doncic. And so did Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, who had an eye on Luka Doncic since day 1. And Cuban, no stranger to taking risks on the European players, decided that it was time to take that risk again. Cuban believed that Memphis would take Jaren Jackson Jr. with the 4th pick if Luka was off the board. So the Mavericks knew that they needed to make a deal fast. And the Hawks liked Trae Young. Their GM had previously helped the Golden State Warriors form their duo of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. And he kind of wanted to recreate that with Kevin Huerter and Trae Young in Atlanta. So the Mavericks made the deal. If Young fell to the 5th pick, they would draft him and trade him to the Atlanta Hawks for Luka Doncic. So with the 3rd pick, the Atlanta Hawks selected the Wonder Boy, Luka Doncic. A dream he had had since a little kid had finally came true. Luka was in the NBA.
Will actually be headed to Dallas. So let's talk through that and how much communication have you had with the Dallas organization?
Yeah, I've been talking to them, I've been talking to a lot of teams, but especially Dallas, they've been talking to me. They were so nice to me. And I'm glad, I'm just happy to be in the NBA, I'm just happy to be a part of that.
And just like predicted, the Memphis Grizzlies would select Jaren Jackson Jr., leaving Trae Young to get drafted by the Dallas Mavericks and traded to Atlanta for Luka Doncic. Mark Cuban and the Dallas Mavericks once again had got their guy.
Luka Doncic.
In my opinion, the biggest miss in the NBA draft. He was the number 1 pick, no question, in my mind.
Yeah.
But okay, that's my orientation and knowing both leagues and understanding. I think that teams in many cases draft for position or maybe draft for potential. But in terms of readiness, NBA readiness, there was no player in the draft that was more NBA ready than Luka Doncic. Unquestioned, hands down.
Although Luka Doncic did not go #1, it was fate that he was able to land in Dallas and learn from the greatest European player ever, Dirk Nowitzki.
I think the whole Europe, not just me, was looking up to Dirk. He was kind of the first European that stood out. I was lucky to be in Dallas, talk to him, hang out with him. Big thing for Europeans.
This gave Luka a mentor in the NBA that dealt with the same hardships that he did. Being labeled as soft for being a foreign player and often being criticized for his lack of athleticism. But unlike Dirk, Luka had an enormous amount of hype around him, as many fans could not wait for his debut game. In his first game, well, he had a chance to be matched up with the guy that was picked #1 instead of him, DeAndre Ayton. This was Luka's chance to prove to the scouts that they got it wrong and that the Suns made a mistake. But he didn't. Luka only scored 10 points and added in 8 rebounds in a 121-100 loss against the Phoenix Suns. And Ayton, well, he showed out. He scored 18 points and grabbed 10 rebounds in his first game. The critics seemed to be right. Luka was good, but not good enough to be the first overall pick. For the first time in his life, Luka looked like he might actually struggle. And it lasted 3 days, as his very next game he dropped 26 points and 6 rebounds in a win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, becoming the youngest Dallas Mavericks player to ever score 20 points in an NBA game. 9 days later, well, he would score 31 points and get 8 rebounds, giving him his first 30-point game. In his first 10 games, he became the youngest player to score 20 points and 30 points in Dallas Mavericks history. And much like Real Madrid, the Wonder Boy had arrived in the NBA. Luka would win Rookie of the Month of October, destroying his fellow rookie competition. But it wasn't until a game in November where Luka finally got to play against one of his idols.
Been a particular game or person or something that's been fun for you to do?
I would say LeBron, everybody else. I always looked up for LeBron, so he's my idol.
Growing up, Luka was unable to catch many NBA games due to the time difference, but LeBron was always a player that he admired. He enjoyed the way LeBron played the game, getting everyone involved while being able to score. Something that Luka himself takes pride in doing.
My favorite is LeBron, the way he rebounds, passes, scores. He can play a lot of positions. I can play a lot of positions, but to be like LeBron, I need to work much harder.
So in a game in November, Luka had the chance to play against him for the first time and would land 2 blocks on him in the first half. The Mavericks would go on to win this game, but for Luka, getting a chance to play against LeBron was a win in itself. And after the game, him and LeBron would have an exchange and Luka would get a signed jersey from his idol. And then the next month, Luka once again took home Rookie of the Month honors. And he kept blowing the league away. In Europe, Luka was known for never shying away from big moments, and that translated to the NBA. In a game against the Rockets in December, his Mavericks found himself down 8 points with 3 minutes left in the game, where Luka would drain a catch-and-shoot 3. Then the next possession, he would come down and would discover his new signature move.
I didn't really use the step back in Europe, but then I did it against Houston in my first year, and they say, oh, you have a great step back, and since then I've been doing the step back. I didn't really like.
Wait, no, but wait. You did it against Houston? Like you did it in the game? You hadn't practiced it really?
No, I never, before I never really practiced the step back.
After scoring to tie the game, Luka would then hit a monster step back over Clint Capella, scoring 11 straight points and leading the Dallas Mavericks to a come-from-behind victory.
Take me through what goes through your mind as the clock is going down and it's a close game.
I just feel confident. I know I have the confidence of my teammates, of my team, so I just feel confident on myself, and I love taking those shots. I get motivated with the shit, man. I have to make the last shot, so I like it.
Luka was the truth, having one of the best rookie years we have ever seen. Luka was playing so well that it forced the Dallas Mavericks' hand, as the year that was supposed to be a goodbye tour for Dirk Nowitzki turned into an accelerated rebuild. forcing Dallas to find a co-star for their young star. So during the trade deadline, Dallas did exactly that. They would land Kristaps Porzingis, another European star, to pair up with Luka Doncic. Unfortunately for Dallas, he was still recovering from an ACL tear and would not play that entire season. And because of that, the Mavericks would miss the playoffs completely. But Luka was still the talk of the league. He would become the third rookie ever to sweep the Rookie of the Month award. He was named the unanimous All-Rookie First Team, finished 10th in the NBA in points scored in the clutch, and took home Rookie of the Year honors. Luka Doncic had just completed one of the best rookie seasons in NBA history. With Dirk Nowitzki now gone, all attention was on Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis going into his second year. Although they had failed to make the playoffs the last season, the expectations were high for Dallas. Many wondered if Luka would go through a sophomore slump, and if he could play alongside a star like Porzingis. At least off the court, the duo had a great relationship. Both being from Europe, they hung out with each other a lot and would speak to each other in Spanish. And the Mavs hoped that off-court chemistry would carry onto the court. As the second season showed no signs of Luka slowing down, he actually got better, improving his numbers to 28 points, 8 assists, 9 rebounds a game from his 21.6 assists, 7 rebounds a year prior. Luka was unstoppable, and now he had a partner in crime that could also give him 20 a night. The Mavericks were soaring, and Luka would be named to his first ever NBA All-Star game. Finishing second only to his idol LeBron James in fan voting, the 20-year-old was named to an All-Star starter in the Western Conference. Although he didn't make a big splash in the All-Star game, being a starter at the age of 20 was good enough. The season continued after All-Star break until about mid-March, when the whole world seemed to come to a stop.
Last night it was the NBA suspending its season after Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz tested positive for the coronavirus. The league will use this hiatus to determine the next steps in dealing with the pandemic.
Due to COVID-19, the NBA was forced to suspend the season until July, and Doncic would take some time to go back to Slovenia with his family and get his body ready for an NBA restart. In July, the NBA would officially restart the season in an unconventional way. Due to the strict quarantine rules across the country, the league created a bubble. Essentially, 22 teams got invited for the chance to determine the 2020 NBA champion. For Luka and the Mavs, this was a chance to get into the playoffs and show the league who they were. And Luka wasted no time, averaging a near 30-point triple-double and leading his Dallas Mavericks to the 7th seed in the NBA playoffs. He was also named NBA All-Seeding First Team in the bubble. And with no other sport on, all the nation's focus was watching the young Slovenian kid absolutely destroy the NBA. But his first big test would come in the playoffs, where he would see the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers featured two dynamic two-way wings in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Two guys that could certainly lock up young Luka and take him completely out of the game. But Luka was no average player. And in Game 1, he dropped 42 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds in his very first ever NBA playoff game. Luka was doing it again, shocking the world on just how good of a player he already was. Despite Luka's efforts, they would go on to lose Game 1. In Game 2 saw more of a balanced attack from the Mavericks, winning the game 127-114, with Luka scoring 28 points and Porzingis adding in 21. Game 3, Luka struggled and only scored 13 points in another loss to the Los Angeles Clippers. But that was not the biggest loss of the night, as the Mavericks would also lose their star, Kristaps Porzingis, who would be sidelined for the remainder of the series. Injuries was something that was always been a concern with Dallas trading for Porzingis, and it showed up at the absolute worst time. So heading into Game 4 with his Mavericks down 2-1, Luka had a lot of weight on his shoulders, but you have to remember who we were talking about. Luka Doncic, the Wonder Boy, or as called in the NBA, Luka Magic. And he had done a lot of magic that night. In deciding Game 4, Luka had 43 points and had 17 rebounds with 13 assists. His performance was phenomenal, but the game wasn't over just yet. After willing his team to overtime, Luka found his Mavericks down 1 point with 3 seconds left remaining on the clock. This was time for a little bit of Luka magic.
Back to Doncic. Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
A game winner to top off a 40-point triple-double and tie the series at 2 apiece. In a series where most people wrote Dallas off, Luka somehow managed to make it competitive. But the magic seemed to wear off after that game as the Clippers blew them out in Game 5 and won Game 6, sending Dallas home in the first round. Each year, Luka had improved, reaching the playoffs, being named an NBA All-Star in his second year. But it was time to make the next step. With Porzingis getting hurt in the previous year's playoffs, the hope was that he could remain healthy this year for a playoff push. Dallas believed if Porzingis was healthy last season, they would have beat the Los Angeles Clippers. And Luka continued his dominance in his third year, averaging 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, while leading the Mavericks to a 42-30 record and the 5th best record in the West. Then came the first round of the playoffs, where once again, he would meet up with the Los Angeles Clippers. Much like last year, Luka was phenomenal, dropping 40 points in 3 of the 7 games. And after jumping out to a 2-0 lead, the Mavericks would lose 4 of the next 5 games and once again get knocked out of the first round. Dallas now had serious concerns, losing to the same team 2 years in a row. But there was more than just issues on the court. There was internal issues within the organization, and this was the first time we began to hear negative media coverage around Luka. Things became bad when Rick decided to step down after losing to the Clippers yet again. Apparently, Rick and Luka could never see eye to eye, and it was common to see the young star openly frustrated with his coach. Earlier in the season, Luka was seen yelling at Rick after being subbed out of a game, where he would say, "Who's in charge, you or Bob?" Bob was the director of quantitative research, who many players believe dictated the lineup and rotation set. Around this time, old pre-draft reports also began to circulate, accusing Luka Doncic of being disliked by his teammates, self-centered, and immature. To make matters worse, there were speculations about Porzingis and Luka's relationship in Dallas. Porzingis was quote-unquote unhappy being a Dallas Maverick. It was believed that he wanted a bigger role in the offense and was jealous about the attention that Luka was giving.
Kristaps Porzingis is not seen as having the greatest relationship with Luka Doncic. A matter of fact, some people have accused him of being jealous.
Especially in the playoffs, you could see the Mavericks run a Luka-centric offense, which turned Porzingis more into a spot-up shooter to give Luka his space. When Porzingis was brought over here, it looked to be a 1A, 1B situation, which turned into Luka being option 1, 2, and 3, and leaving Porzingis as just another role player. As you can see from some of these clips, it seemed like Luka did not trust Porzingis on the court. Luka was a one-man show that needed help, but seemed to refuse help at times. The Luka Doncic ended the third season with an attack on his character and another first-round exit. So this offseason was big for him, and he had a pretty huge offseason. He was a driving force in helping Slovenia qualify for their first Olympic Games. In addition, he was named the NBA 2K22 cover athlete.
When I heard they wanted me for 2K22 cover, I was like really excited. I think this is any kids that play basketball dream. It's a special occasion for me. I think for back home here in USA, in Dallas, obviously. And, I think I've been playing about 9-10 years of 2K. A lot of my friends play, we play together. So for being in the cover now, it's going to feel special.
Alongside the NBA 2K22 cover, it was announced by the Jordan brand that Luka Doncic would have his first signature shoe on the way.
Amazing. I mean, not a lot of people can say they have their own shoes, and especially with a brand like Jordan, it's unbelievable.
To cap off the offseason, Luka would sign a $207 million 5-year extension with the Mavericks. Luka's popularity this offseason would launch into the stratosphere. With all the great things happening in the offseason, on the court there were some changes. Jason Kidd was hired as the new team head coach. With Kidd there they hoped that the Mavericks would have a different outcome, as the last 2 years for Luka seemed very similar. His numbers didn't change much, and he lost in the first round to the Clippers in both seasons. A third year with the same performance and same results would raise some serious red flags. He needed to take the next step this year and make it out of the first round. The word MVP was also getting thrown around a lot this year, as people expected his numbers to take a jump as well. But Luka, despite having all the hype in the great offseason, did not look like himself to start the season. He had came in overweight, weighing 260 pounds and looking out of shape and slow.
Skip, this is embarrassing. A professional athlete is out of shape. Doesn't that seem oxymoronic? Because all he has to do is just play his sport. He ain't got to do nothing else. He ain't got to box. A lot of guys box, a lot of guys swim, a lot of guys do other things. All he has to do is go play basketball, and he can get in shape.
With Luka usually being listed at around 230 pounds, the extra 30 pounds was very concerning for the Mavericks. A year where Luka was supposed to take that next leap in his career, win an MVP, and get out of the first round, had a very, very bad start to it, forcing Luka to use the beginning of his season more like a training camp to get his body back in shape. Despite Luka's conditioning, Dallas had other issues. Porzingis and Luka, well, they could never figure it out. Despite how well they looked on paper, the two couldn't figure out how to play with each other, mainly due to Porzingis being in and out the lineup.
You don't have a good enough second banana. And understand, I think Porzingis could have been an amazing player, and he is very good. But every year he's recovering from injury, just trying to get back to where he was the previous year. So he never gets to develop any better than he's already been. And frequently he's not even that.
With no major improvements in the last 2 years and the Luka-Porzingis experiment running its course, the Mavericks front office knew they had to make a move. So they decided to trade away Porzingis at the trade deadline to Washington.
Kristaps Porzingis. That was a big trade that happened. What was that like for you, watching that go down, your kind of final conversations with him as he left the team?
Well, it was surprising, I was actually taking a nap, and I woke up and then I saw getting straight, and I didn't expect it at all. But I think things didn't work the way it should.
With this move, Dallas planned to put more shooting and ball handling around Luka, bringing in Spencer Dinwiddie and also giving Jalen Brunson a bigger role in the offense. After the deadline, Luka got his body into shape and Brunson had the best year of his career. The backcourt duo was already better than Luka and Porzingis, and the Mavericks would finish 52-30 with the fourth best record in the West. With a new supporting cast around him and a new duo, Luka was ready to make a deep run in this year's playoffs. Unlike the last 2 years, they did not have to see the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round. Instead, they were matched up against the regular season juggernaut Utah Jazz. With the help of Jalen Brunson dropping 41 points in Game 2, the Mavericks won the series in 6 games. In Round 2, they would match up against the top-seeded Phoenix Suns. Phoenix was coming off a finals appearance the year prior in the best regular season in franchise history. Almost everyone ruled the Mavericks out of this series, and even before they had a chance to land in Phoenix, many thought this series was over. And rightfully so, Phoenix took Game 1 and Game 2 in convincing fashion. Dallas would defend their home court in the next 2 games and tie the series back up. And Phoenix would once again win Game 5 at home, leading to a Game 6, where Dallas knew no matter what, they had to find a way to win a game on the road. So Dallas would take Game 6 at home and now had to travel to the place they had not won all series, Phoenix. Game 7 in Phoenix, Dallas has yet to win a game. Luka needed to prove that he could lead this team to the conference finals and that the road would not end here.
As a leader of your team, what did you say to your guys to get them ready for this game Sunday? It's win or go home tonight. So what was your speech to your teammates today?
It's easy. I just say, stay together, play as a team, and play hard. Those 3 things, if we do it right, we're going to have a chance. And like I said before, this team is special, and we just got to stay together the whole game.
Right off the bat, the Dallas Mavericks delivered a haymaker to the Phoenix Suns. The Mavericks simply could not miss a shot in the first half. Luka would drop 27 points in the first half, which was equal to the entire Suns team, capped off by this Luka Doncic ankle breaker at the end of the half.
Stunning. 27-point lead. Down goes Johnson. 3 lead.
Oh no.
They're shredding him.
The basketball world was absolutely stunned. The Mavericks ended up winning Game 7 in Phoenix by 33 points. Luka Doncic just put the entire basketball world on notice.
I gotta apologize. I didn't see this coming. I knew Luka was gonna do what he was gonna do. I had no idea Spencer Dinwiddie would play like that. I thought Jalen Brunson would do his thing, but to be up by 30 at the half, or Luka to have as many points as the Phoenix Suns in the first half, for them to be up as many as 46 in a Game 7. It was the largest halftime deficit in the history of a Game 7. It was one of the largest deficits, the 46-point deficit in NBA history. It was a complete catastrophe on the part of the Phoenix Suns. It don't get much worse.
Not only was Luka great in Game 7, he dominated the whole series. He outscored Devin Booker, out-rebounded DeAndre Ayton, and somehow got more assists than Chris Paul. Luka Doncic had made his mark, and this was his first defining playoff series. Unfortunately, that momentum did not carry over to the next round, as the Golden State Warriors would beat them in 5 games, sending Luka and the Mavericks back home.
It wasn't great, because we lost, but me, personally, I learned a lot, from a team like Warriors, championship material, what it takes to win.
You got to the Western Conference Finals last year. You got a little bit of a taste of it. How would you describe your hunger to try and bring an NBA championship to Dallas?
Yeah, that's everything. Everybody wants to win the championship. I want to win the championship here, so it's our goal. Every season is the same goal, but it's a lot of work to do. There's so many great teams in this league. Anybody can beat you at this point, so you got to be really ready.
Year 5, Luka has a lot to prove. He still has yet to win the MVP to prove that he's one of the best in the league, and more importantly, he needs to reach the NBA Finals. Last year was a big step for Luka, but everyone knows he needs to do much more. And this offseason didn't help. Dallas would lose Luka's best teammate, Jalen Brunson. And due to the loss of Brunson, Luka's usage rate would skyrocket to the highest in the NBA. Dallas lived and died completely off of how well Luka played. And it was an issue that the entire league knew. Head coach Jason Kidd had spoken about it multiple times, his concerns of overworking Luka. But Dallas really had no other option. The team around Luka was just simply not built to win. And Luka was not necessarily easy to play with. Because of his talent, many players were turned into bystanders, much like Porzingis. Luka's consistent isolations do not help this at all, as teammates were not able to get in any type of rhythm.
Always has the ball. Initiates a ton of contact. That takes its toll on you over a game. Plays a lot of minutes. Everything goes through him, and he scores 35 to 38 points effortlessly. And then by the end of the game, he's gassed, and they're picking on him.
There was a legit concern if Luka can play with another all-star level player. Does he actually make his teammates better? The best player we've ever seen play with Luka left him and is having a career year in New York. But Luka would get his revenge. In a game that many would call one of the best performances of all time, Luka dug his Mavericks out of the grave to win a game from behind Luka's 60-point triple-double. He had a truly historic night. However, if you take a step back and looking at the 60 points, you can see the issue. In order to win the game, Luka had to do something only few players in NBA history have done. And in the West, being as tight as it is, Luka knew that his team needed to improve.
What are you most frustrated about?
Just not getting the wins. That's it for me. Just let a couple games go.
Getting closer to February, trade deadline reports came out that Luka was forcing the Dallas Mavericks' hand and wanted them to trade for another star. At this point, Luka was fed up. The team looked worse than they did last year, and the supporting cast was significantly worsened because of Jalen's absence. In order to make a playoff push and return to the Western Conference Finals, the Dallas Mavericks knew they had to make a move.
Well, the Dallas Mavericks making a huge trade tonight, and there will be major implications on and off the court. Kyrie Irving is now a Maverick.
And they did, making the second biggest move of the entire season. Dallas landed future Hall of Fame guard Kyrie Irving. And the first time in Luka's NBA career, he legitimately had a superstar teammate. With Irving there was now no excuses. Luka had to lead the Mavericks to the promised land. With more pressure than ever, can the Wonder Boy finally cement his legacy as an all-time great in the NBA?
The goal is the same, win a championship. That's the goal. Win a championship, that's it.
Do you think you have what it takes to do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you gotta believe it. If not, you shouldn't be even playing. You gotta believe you're gonna win it.